Hello, it's Ruby, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 25 top tips for exams, but in under 5 minutes. One thing which can actually be really useful is to keep a list of what's in my exam pencil case. This just means that you don't forget anything. And it's really important to bring a lot of spare pens. The very worst thing is when your pen runs out halfway through an exam, and if you don't have a spare one, yes, you can ask your examiner for one, but then you're just wasting time. One thing I really recommend doing is trying writing with a variety of different pens beforehand. This way you just find the one that is most comfortable for you to write with for a long period of time. One thing I will always do before an exam is a power pose. This is a natural way to release adrenaline in your body, and so you go into the exam with more confidence. I always just feel I'm in a better mindset to succeed. As soon as your exam starts, it's a good idea just to flick through the whole of the paper to see how long it is and to see where their most heavily weighted questions are, and that way you can plan your time more efficiently and make sure that you don't run out of time. So right before an exam, when everyone is queuing up, the levels of stress and pressure are really, really high, and it's so easy to fall into that hype of getting really, really anxious. And so, however tempting it can be to go through your notes and talk with your peers about how nervous you are for the exam, really do not. Because it gets you into a really bad state of mind. What I would do is either bring a book and read this straight beforehand, or agree with some friends that we were going to talk but not about the exam. I really recommend going to the toilet before an exam. Make sure that you eat a proper breakfast. It's good to keep your hair off of your face, because in practice I just find that you get less distracted. Another important thing to do is wear something that you feel successful and confident and comfortable in. This will differ from person to person, but I like to wear something quite smart and formal, but something that is equally very comfortable for me as well. Try your very best to stay calm. If something comes up which you're really not very sure about or which you think is difficult, honestly just move on. Do not let it distract you and come back to it at the end. If I come across a question that I'm not sure about and that I want to come back to at the end, then I will just draw a circle around the question number. This makes it really easy to see the questions at first glance when you go back to check. Similarly, if I write something and I'm really not sure about my answer, or I just want to double check it if there's a calculation, then to make it easy for me to find it, I will just do a star, like an asterisk, next to it. Okay. When it comes to essay questions, I really recommend spending time thinking about which ones you are going to write. And then when I'm choosing these questions, I will just jot down very, very brief notes or just keywords for things that I think I could talk about. It means that I'm more likely to choose the right questions for me. So if you're writing a longer answer when it's for something like business studies or science or geography, not necessarily typically an essay-based subject, but you do have sections and questions where you do need to write a long paragraph, then I really recommend just bullet pointing a mini plan to make sure that it's a coherent answer and that you're not going to be waffling. 1 minute usually equals 1 mark, so if it's a 6-mark question, you don't want to spend time waffling and writing when you could just get all of the key points down in a really coherent and quick way. Okay, so in science, if you start to run out of time, I recommend just bullet pointing your answers. As long as you get all of the key information down, that's the main thing. At the beginning of the exam, I really recommend asking for more paper then, as opposed to waiting until you run out of paper. Always make sure that you've got at least 2 pieces more than you think you will need. That's my rule of thumb, and then you don't waste time putting your hand up during the exam. If the exam is an answer booklet kind of style, then I ideally would leave 15 to 20 minutes to check at the end at least, and then for an essay subject I would leave at least 5 minutes, but ideally around 15. My 5 last tips then relate to checking your paper. If you do have enough time, it's really, really, really great to go over calculations and redo these just to make sure that you didn't make any silly errors. So what I really recommend doing when you finish with time to check is just going through and counting the page numbers. So going page 1, page 2, page 3, and making sure that all of them are there. Equally, going to the front of the booklet where it tells you all of the question numbers and counting through the questions to make sure that you answered all of them. It can also be good when checking your work to check for words that you can't properly read, just to make sure that the examiner knows exactly what you're talking about. If you find a word that isn't completely clear, then just write it again above the word so that the examiner knows what you're talking about. Check your key terms and make sure that you have spelt them correctly. And then lastly, reread the questions when you're checking through your answers, just to make sure that you actually properly answered the question. Really hope that this video was helpful and concise, and I hope that you have a productive week and that the rest of your exams go incredibly and that you do as well as you deserve to do.